Good morning and welcome back to my channel. My name is Debbie, and if this is your first time here, please don't make your last by clicking on that subscribe button. And if it's not, welcome back to my channel. So guys, I am outside, as you guys can hear, so I apologize for the noise, but that is currently why I'm speaking into my phone, so the audio is not completely useless. So I am hoping and I'm praying that this audio isn't completely bad. But yeah, I am just outside with my cup of tea, and I basically just came to talk to you guys about the message that God has put on my heart while I was doing Bible study. So yeah, I pray that this message gets to whoever needs it, and I also pray that God gives me the wisdom and the courage to be able to talk about this with you guys. I feel like most of the times God puts certain messages on my heart to share with you guys, and I don't share it because I get scared of it not being perfect. Like, when you love something, you obviously want it to be perfect, but I do it at the detriment of what God has told me to do, and I end up not posting it. I had like videos on purpose and many other things that I didn't get to post because I wanted it to be a certain way. I wanted it to just be perfect, and it wasn't perfect. So this is me coming to share my imperfect video with you guys. But yeah, today we are going to be talking about the story of Abraham and Sarah. I was doing Bible study a few days ago, and I'm currently reading the book of Genesis, and I had come across the story of Abraham and Sarah. And the first story I think that stood out to me the most was the one where God gave him the promise, but God also told him to pack up his family, pack up everything, and leave. God didn't tell him where he was going to. God just said, move. I know what was also so crazy to me, like while I was reading this, was how different my understanding of Genesis was when I read it before compared to how it is now. Like, I think everybody knows the story of Abraham and Sarah, but reading it like through a different lens, crazy. But anyways, before I start rambling, I read that part, and I think what was crazy to me was Abraham's response, how quickly he responded to what God had told him to do. And I was like, what? So in the back of my head, I just wrote down obedience, I wrote down trust, I wrote down faith. And I just started reflecting on this chapter that I just read, and it made me basically start questioning. And I wrote down this question, which is where the topic came from. What does it mean to trust God? I wrote down that question, and I started asking myself, and I was like, if I was in the situation that Abraham was, like right now, still in school, no job, no nothing, but God said, move all your family, move everything, and just go. I don't know where you're going to, but I will show you where you're going to. I'm going to be like, God, what? Where do you want me to move to with no money? Like, that just had me questioning myself as well, which is not a bad thing. But I wrote down that question, and I was reflecting on it through my other Bible study that I was doing through the book of Genesis. And what is so crazy to me is how God aligns certain messages, how intentional he is with his messages and his answers for you. So tell me why I'm on Instagram Reels, like scrolling through, and I come across this podcast, and she's talking about the same topic. So I click on it and I go and listen to the full thing where she's talking about, and lo and behold, she's talking about Abraham and Sarah. She's like explaining, she's going in, she's doing all of this, and I'm listening to it, and she says something that basically kind of it answered the question. So while listening to the podcast, she said something that stood out to me the most, and it was Abraham knew how God was going to operate. Let me say that again. Abraham knew how God was going to operate. When she said that, I was like, what? But it also makes so much sense, because how do you trust someone that you don't know? How do you have faith in someone that you don't know? You don't know their patterns, you don't know how they're going to react, you don't know nothing. Because when you meet your friends for the first time, to you, they're strangers. But as you get to know them, you get to have faith in certain things that they say. So if they say, I'm going to show up in 2 hours, and that friend is someone that is reliable, they will show up in 2 hours time for you. So that was the same situation, or that is the same situation with God. And if you read through the story of, sorry guys, I had to go change my battery, it died. But I was saying that if you read through the book of Genesis, and you also know the story of Abraham and Sarah, you know how God promised them a child. You know how long they had to wait for that child. You also know how God told Abraham to sacrifice his son that God gave them after waiting for so many years. This is me being truthful with you guys, just thinking about it. I don't know if I would do that. If God said right now, like after giving me a son, after so many years of waiting, God says, sacrifice your only son, I honestly do not know how I am going to react. I don't know that I will react in obedience. But Abraham did that because he knew how God operated. He had faith in how God operated. And as Christians, like we know these things, but it's just like in face of hardship, we try to pick and choose when to trust God. But we already know how God operates. We already know that he's going to do what he says he's going to do. We already know that the promises that he promised us, is definitely going to come to pass. It might take a little bit of time, but God is going to do what he says he's going to do. It's so easy to say we trust God, but do we actually trust God? Do we actually have faith that what he has promised us is going to come to pass? And I'm just going to have to be going back to this story, but I'm going back to the story of Abraham and Sarah, where Sarah asked Abraham to sleep with one of the maids for a child. And that just shows that she didn't trust God. She didn't know how God operated. She didn't have that trust in him. But it's like if we really trusted God, we would know that his promises are going to come to pass. We would know that we have no reason to fear. It might take a little time, but it's definitely going to happen. So yeah, that is basically it. So that is where I'm going to end off this video. I hope and I pray that it gets to whoever needs it. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.